The music industry is dying. Recording studios are closing down. And it's becoming harder and harder to get your music heard on Spotify. What are we going to do? More of that when we get back. Hi, my name is Josh Chin, and I am a current music student at Singapore Raffles Music College, and we are affiliated with London College of Music and the University of West London. As the global pandemic has been ongoing for more than a year, and many of us have been studying remotely, this has just been the tip of the iceberg in considering the future of the music industry. It's definitely a scary situation to be in when we are looking at how can we possibly make a living for the next 5, 10, 15 or even 20 years or even more depending on how young you are. If you're watching this video at 50, then maybe you just want to go for another 10, 20 years or even less. You're done with it and you're just like, okay, I'll just chill and live off my savings. But not every one of us is in that situation. So I'm looking at it from my point of view as a 35-year-old mature music student and also as a fresh graduate from a college or university. How would I look at the music industry today versus 10 years ago when I first got into the music industry? 10 years ago, it was basically the fledgling years of YouTube. It was the start of so many new technologies and everyone was still finding their feet. And so I would say that those who managed to catch the waves that brought out things like Spotify and various streaming platforms, even YouTube Music, which I guess launched a year or two ago and started being pushed more in the past 1 year or so. If you have not heard of Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Music, I guess maybe you may have come from the days of CDs or even records. The music industry has grown exponentially and the technology that goes with it has progressed even faster than we most of the time can keep up with. It's definitely hard to look at it and say, hey, this is definitely what I want to do without really taking stock of what is the niche that you are going to work in. So for this video, I'm going to address one possible potential option, and in future videos, I will touch on the various other possibilities. As a current music student, I think about recording as going into the studio and playing my instrument and maybe singing as well as I can. And then after that, I look at the recording engineer, the mixing engineer, and the mastering engineers. And these are the guys that I know well enough. But what about everything else about the music industry that I haven't considered? What about the label people? What about the A&R? What about the people that are in charge of promotion? These are all within the music industry, and I'm sure many of them started off as passionate music students or just extremely passionate people that got a foot in the door because of someone that they knew and they really were very passionate to pursue this as a career. Not everyone in the music industry has an education nor is privileged enough to have had the education that many of us would want to attain. And even getting a degree in the music line does not guarantee you a job in the music line. Of course, you could just go into teaching and you could also go into working for a music shop, but I would say that if you were considering becoming a teacher, this has to be something that you're passionate about. Otherwise, you will struggle to sustain it over the long term. The greatest music teachers are those that have great passion and they are truly excited to see their students grow. Now, one part of the recording industry, not the music industry, but the recording industry that many of us fail to consider is location sound. Location sound is a very different feel from what we see in music college, because it usually does not involve the music industry so much. However, the skills and ability that we pick up during music college come into play more often than not, because we still need to consider things like microphones, levels, and making sure the quality of the audio is good. So many of us recording engineers or future recording engineers would do well to consider the possibility of working in location or production sound. For production sound, your job is to record the dialogue. And the dialogue of a movie or a film or even just a simple YouTube video could be what makes or breaks the movie. A poorly written script would get people walking out of theaters, whereas a well-written script can be so memorable that people are jumping out of their seats and applauding. Both get you out of your seat, but one keeps you in the cinema as well. Think back to the days of silent films where there were no dialogue picked up, and that was because the mics were maybe not good enough, the recording systems were not small and compact or easy enough to proceed with, and silent films just had maybe a bit of music, lighting changes, set changes, but nothing that involved dialogue. As soon as dialogue got into the film and video industry, it changed the way that people perceived movies and films, and it gave something else to remember. For example, think about these lines. Here's looking at you, kid. Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. You complete me. These are just very memorable lines from past movies, and I'm sure there are many more great scripts and great lines that will be spoken and make a certain actor synonymous with those lines. But if these are not picked up by the production recording engineer, what would happen is none of this can be memorable because it wouldn't be heard at all. And if it was done poorly and the quality of the audio was distracting, then you wouldn't remember the line. You would remember how badly it was recorded or how badly it was delivered. I mean, could you imagine The Rock saying, "You complete me"? You know, that would be hilarious. It might work if they set it up properly, but probably they'll spend 2 hours just developing that concept. So it is actually very essential to have a very good delivery and script and everything, but if your recording quality is poor, you're gonna have a problem. Let's talk about the current day practices of location and production sound. Production sound is more of the person that is recording the dialogue while the camera is catching the acting, whereas location sound could be the same person, possibly not. But production sound usually involves 2 to 3 people. The production mixer, who also may be the only sound guy on set. Or you will have also a boom operator, which is a person that holds the boom arm that has a mic attached to it. Examples of little boom mics would be a larger version of something like this, a shotgun microphone. And that is actually what I'm using to record this audio as well. And you will also have the production mixer, who will have a voice recorder or a production mixer, and that would actually be a larger version of the Zoom H1, which I'm also using as a backup audio for this video. Now, you have to consider that these 2 people are already super overworked, so usually there's a third person, and that person is in charge of everything else. He's basically sound guy number 3, which is the go for, and he's supposed to go for anything that you need. If you need someone to adjust the lavalier mics, like if we have lavalier mics for the talents, you end up with, okay, this talent needs the lavalier mic, this talent needs that mic, and it's something that even if you have a boom operator and you have a production mixer, half the time in a bigger production set, there are too many people involved to have just these 2 guys do all the sound. So you usually have the third, maybe even a 4th person if the budget allows. For production sound and location sound, that's just the first step, because location sound is about going out to the field to get the sound. Think about if you cannot hear the sound of the room in your video, what would a cafe scene be without the sound of the cafe? And location sound is in charge of that, to get the sound of the cafe. So very often you would come across the call silence on set. And silence on set means that it is time for the production mixer, the boom operator, to get the sound of the room, the sound of the ambience, and the sound of the location itself, whether it's a desert, a cafe, a busy street, or even an empty, quiet hall. Every room has a moderate amount of tone because cities have gotten very, very loud. Thinking about Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, or even London, and there's almost no place that you will get complete silence. You would have to look for an anechoic chamber, which is designed not to have sound. But for most rooms, there will be a tone of some sort, whether it's the sound of the air conditioning or the sound of people breathing in the room. That is still a room tone. Silence on set doesn't mean absolute silence because we will still have some sound. The development of audio recording technology has come a long way, and so there's so many ways to capture that sound and have it on the go, even with a bunch of batteries, a few microphones, and a recording device of some sort. This would already allow many people to get into the industry, at least on a smaller scale. And this is important because one part of the future of the recording industry is location and production sound. It doesn't mean that you have to be attached to a production studio like Warner Brothers or Universal or something like that to make it in the recording industry. But this does mean that you should look at other possibilities. The future for me is on streaming websites such as YouTube, Netflix, Spotify, and other various distribution tools that are great for getting your work out there. Whether it is working with YouTubers to improve the sound quality of their videos, to teach people to develop better audio recording techniques, or maybe it is just to work on something like Foley, which is just everyday sounds. But think about it, if the everyday sound of someone walking into the room or someone smacking the table really loudly is not captured properly, what would happen is it does not give the same impact as compared to a film that has every one bit of that Foley sounds captured perfectly, put in and used the right way with the correct modifications to the sound. Let's talk about sound design for a moment. As a recording engineer, we like to modify the sound, and probably for some of us, sound design would be the way to go, because sound design is actually something that makes a film more believable. Take for example, anything by Michael Bay, and you would think of explosions, whether kabooms here, fireballs there. Sound design makes the difference between a okay film that has nice visuals but just kind of okay, or a film that has that Michael Bay touch where the impact is there, is felt as well as heard, as well as seen. For example, it allows us to imagine how an alien would sound like, because we don't know what an alien sounds like. It will allow us to imagine what a transformer sounds like. And I'm sure in your head when I say the word transformer, you're already thinking of the sound that the transformer makes. None of us would know what that would be like until the sound design is done. That is the importance of sound design and sound effects also. Sound effects are usually a little bit more close to reality, whether it is recording multiple gunshots and even the racking of the slide for the gun. You actually want to catch every nuance and then develop it and modify it to suit the character or the scene. And that would be where the sound effect plays into the sound design of the film. The sound design can be the difference between a certain character being very successful, very strong, very powerful, or making them sound weak if they are shooting, for example, and you just make the pops go very, very gently. And then it can be the difference between the hero and the villain of the movie, for example. Of course, in films, music plays a huge part as well. So maybe you could be the recording engineer for the production and also earn a bit on the side when they are doing their voiceovers, their overdubs, or even their location sound. But we'll touch more on the music in an upcoming video. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and do reach out if you have any questions regarding what is it like studying during a pandemic, because I'm probably going to do some of those videos as well. Certainly I see that despite the challenges that we are facing and that we are going to face in the future, the music industry has definitely opened up a lot more, and it is definitely still possible to make a living in the music and the recording industry. And so for those of you who are currently studying recording, who are my uni mates, I would say keep at it, work hard, and do your best. I look forward to hearing from you guys in the comments below. Thanks, and feel free to give a like and subscribe to this channel for more.